but extra credits, folks. Microtransactions, yes. Good series, we love it.
Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, thing that larger suggestion request from the player base, transparency. The V20 program has shown well that by incorporating the community and feedback in an open conversation, you get a lot of buzz, you get lots of people showing up to buy your $125 book, and it creates a buzz amongst the community. Last year you showed us a video, it was an awesome video, leaked to YouTube. I've been watching it like once every week for the last year. It's a badass video, and that's all we've gotten. We've gotten snippets here and there from a conversation where we're talking about EVE Online for like an hour, and here's, oh, by the way, I'm making this game. We'll get a posted thing about microtransactions in game. If you want, I'm sure you guys know more about marketing games than I do, but the conversation on like the MMO conversation post on White Wolf's website is basically months at a time of people just speculating and saying, I would love to see this, I would hate to see that, followed by, hey guys, by the way, they mentioned the MMO in this one like leaked blog article. It said 5 words. People piling on top of that, tearing it up as much as we can because we want to see more about this game. So please give us something. Idea for the sandbox element that's scrapped later on. Let us see the process. We are your community.
I think you can blame me for this one. I know, I'll take the blame. There's your transparency. It's my fault. I have been an advocate for not releasing information because I know how long our development cycle is going to be, and I just don't want people sitting around for years asking why it's not out yet and where is it. Speculating about it.
It is considered big.
Yeah, but if we feed that fire and people start seeing stuff, it seems more realistic.
I completely agree. Shadowbane made a lot of us bitter with a 5-year development cycle after 3 screenshots. So you can't just release everything now and leave us hanging. It'll actually make it worse in some cases. You weren't waiting. It's going to be awesome.
I hope this turns into a shout fest. Open melee, all right. So the question is, when are we going to release more information? And we will be next year. We'll be releasing more information. That's all I can tell you. I personally don't want to start showing stuff until we're ready to actually start showing stuff and it looks great. I don't want anyone to question how fantastic this game is going to be. When they see it and they start to understand what it is, it breaks the mold of a lot of other games out there.
But there was a piece in New York Times the other day about New York Fashion Week. What's his name?
Zombie Boy?
Zombie Boy, and it started with Lady Gaga.
I forget his name.
Yeah, me too. Anyway, very famous fashion designer. It's using World of Darkness technology, so check it out.
Yeah. And you've seen some of the Incarna stuff, that shared technology with World of Darkness as well, but that's early sort of prototype versions of what we're doing for World of Darkness, which is way more advanced than that. So there's been some videos on YouTube of characters in clothing. You've seen those too, right?
Yeah, weren't those on about 2 or 3 years ago?
They were. They were. Which just goes to show you, wow, is it going to look good when it's done?
Just imagine it.
Yeah, exactly. In all seriousness, just to tell you guys, I mean, the development cycle for an MMO, and especially for the way that we're choosing to do it, which is building shared technology that we can use down the road for the company, it's a long process, and it's one that also has us trying to still meet the needs of the EVE Online subscriber base. These guys are paying our salaries, and they're the ones that keep the company afloat, and we try to make sure that we're servicing them and building a game at the same time. So that's part of the reason why we want to give that technology back and see it that way. Go ahead, you can follow up.
And beyond technology, is there any way you could discuss with us any of the anything?
Game design concepts?
Yeah, that's
We'll talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
If you have some questions, we'll skirt around them and give you a vague answer that has some nugget of truth in it. You guys supposed to be calling what you want.
Yeah. I'm game. Well, last year when you guys announced that you're going to allow people to play as a mortal, I was very, very excited about that. But it got me thinking that some people want to do that for entirely different reasons. Some people would probably like to play a vampire from like basically scratch, where they don't get to pick their clan, somebody else picks it for them, and so they kind of get thrown into the mix. I, on the other hand, am looking forward to playing like a human wandering around while all this crazy vampire business is going on with very little idea of what's actually happening. At least until maybe eventually I get Gould or brought up to speed. I thought it might be beneficial to have some kind of a toggle or something, so players can, almost like a PvP thing, where people can put up, say, yes, I want to be embraced by the first vampire who comes along, or no, I'm here to play a human for a long period of time, please don't mess with me, something like that.
Yeah, well, just gonna tell you how it works.
Okay.
Everybody starts as mortals.
Oh, really? That's very interesting.
And you will be embraced by another player. Ooh. You can play forever as a mortal if you want, but like you say, it's gonna be scary and strange.
Very cool. Nice.
One thing I would add to that is that you can't be embraced against your will. So you do have a choice to refuse the embrace, so that it can't be made into a clan that you didn't want to be and give you some character
That's called
choice.
death.
Damn it, I'm making you a clan.
Yeah, if you die as a mortal, you die permanently. That's the difference between vampires and mortals, right?
No, vampires can die permanently too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Part of what's really great about Vampire the Masquerade, especially for players like me who really enjoy the social and political and the intrigue, is gaining prestige among your own city and the city interaction and gaining titles within your own city. Something I'd really love to see is being able to be, I am from Seattle, I am the Primogen of the Toreador in Seattle. I can contact the Primogen of the Toreador in New York and have that interaction so that we have our own cities and we are organized by our own cities and we can travel to other cities and be able to have that kind of worldwide interaction.
Yes. You pretty much describing
That's exactly how it works.
All right, cool.
Anybody else want to guess at something we're doing? Can you pretend to be vampires? Will there be cooking? Yes. This is our chef down front from the office. Last year he was here and somebody said, oh, you work for CCP, what do you do? He said, I'm the chef. And they said, there's going to be cooking in the game? He's pretty excited. He's a little lit too, so ignore him. He's brown bagging it on this trip. He's taking a break from work. Water in a can.
So I'm going to apologize if I sound ignorant. I'm still new to World of Darkness. But because I'm new, I'm wondering, I have two small questions. Question one, are you going to have a tiered development system for people who are more familiar with the game or people who are brand new like I am, so there's more of a tutorial, but if you want to skip the tutorial, like my husband who's been playing forever and just wants to get into the game, is that an option? And then the second question was, I find myself really fascinated with the concept of caitiff. Because because the clans are wonderful and it's a lot of fun to play them, but caitiff is just a big mysterious question mark. I'm wondering, do you have a plan for caitiff? And my tiny request suggestion would be, everyone's favorite thing in D&D is the Destiny deck or the box of random things where you just reach into the bag and pull out something and it could kill you or make you glorious. That could be something fun with caitiff. You could end up really, really trashed or fantastic.
Wheel of Disciplines.
Spin it.
Caitiffs will not be part of the original release.
Well, you guys get him. He hates your clans. It's something that we've talked about a lot, and we looked at different ways to implement it, but none of them felt exactly right. So it's something that is possible, but seems unlikely at this point.
DLC.
Sorry.
Yeah. It was in the future. I mean, that's the question about, but for the initial release, it's not planned.
One of the other things that you mentioned was ease of access into the game, and what you got?
Well, the thing is that the game is really as deep as you want it. It's not like there's a tiered access to it. It gradually, compares to gradually increase the way, you can play it as casual as you want. you know, I guess some people can even play it like without their understanding, you know, really the game. You know, it's that, you know, that's what we call tier of access. It's really how far you want to get into it. It's kind of like, I don't know if you make the analogy of, you know, Magic the Gathering, for instance. You can play Magic very, you know, casually, but you can also play it like, you know, in chess. So, but it appears to be very, you know, accessible. So,
one of the other things that I would mention is that a big part of our plan is external access from the game through the web as well. So there'll be lots of access to being able to do things in the web. And another thing is that we're really trying to make it such that, like he said, you can go as deep as you want. It's possible to play the game and have influence without ever fighting anyone or just politically.
Yeah, political is very important.
Hopefully a nice simple question. Is it going to be a day-night cycle? And if so, is it going to be worldwide?
So, yeah, we've been talking about this.
We don't need
for a very long time, of course.
Go ahead. I'll let you take that.
When the server goes down, that's when day breaks.
That's it. One of the things that comes about with a day-night cycle is the idea that things can happen to your character while you're not available. We went through a lot of different iterations and looked at a lot of different ways to do it, including having you play secondary characters during the day, your own ghouls, or even humans. That none of them. They all took away from the basic premise of what you wanted to do, which was be in the game and play a vampire. And so that's why we ultimately decided to just make it night all the time.
Yay!
That was a half and half. One guy in the back's like, bullshit. Okay, I'm out of here.
I had some power suggestions. For demontation, instead of like they did in Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, where the guys just kind of like walk around crazy, if somebody uses demontation on me, could you have something like Amnesia, Dark Descent, or Internal Darkness, where like the screen goes crazy, I see bugs on the screen, all of a sudden my friend looks like a monster? You know, could we work out something like that to make demontation as awesome as it is?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's some stuff like that in the game.
Yeah, also very important note of that is that our powers are, always thought, they should work both on normal, on NPCs and humans the same way. So yeah, that definitely.
Yeah, I guess at this point, before we dog barked at my thing last year. I got another dog going. But all right. Anyway, one of the things that it's important to mention at this point is that everything that we're saying is not set in stone. When it chips in the game, then it's in the game for sure. We're going to do a lot of prototyping, a lot of play testing. We're going to make a lot of changes. But stuff we're telling you right now is current design, and it certainly can change. So.
And then my second power comment was for powers like Dominant and Majesty. My friends and I were thinking it would be cool if there was a combat and an out-of-combat use for it. Like combat is the use Majesty, you don't attack me or you're my friend. Out of combat it's more like Mass Effect. You get 10 different types of dialogue. I want you to do this, I want you to do that. Is that something that? Something
similar to that, but really not. That tends to be like an NPC type of thing, whereas when you look at what are you going to do player to player, and it really has more to do with breaking down another's willpower and getting them to submit to the things that you want rather than. So, that's vague, but I can be vague about some stuff.
One of the things that's really appealed is there's so much online interaction that goes on, like chat rooms and email lists and stuff like that, and having another forum to communicate with players, whether it's OWBN or Cam Fan Club or whatever, and move those interactions into the 3D environment. I'd really like to see a way to filter it, like have club, like CFC or OWBN clubs, where there's some sort of tag on your name to keep, like, Scrote Master from getting in there and griefing the whole.
Oh, we met online.
But just some sort of filter control to keep the griefers out and kind of.
Yeah, we have stuff for that too. Yeah. So fundamentally, attacking other players is something that damages your humanity. And when your humanity goes low enough, then other people can come after you. So basically opening yourself up to persecution by every other asshole who wants to name themselves Scrub Master and kill the players.
I guess more to the point, like people just come through and like troll conversations and.
Oh, okay, you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, that's a different thing. It's also, yeah.
Does ignore not work for you?
Oh, and they're, you know, in your face, dancing in a thong.
Could ignore turn off their avatars you don't even see.
Ah, yeah. I don't know. That's tough. It's tough when you're in a world with other people trying to get them to do what you want. Believe me, I've tried.
Yeah. It's a very interesting problem because what we are aiming to do, and you know, systems are, you know, trying to solve this issue, because it's not only, you know, for trolling and, you know, wearing clothes, it's also just, you know, antisocial behavior in general. Is that different from many other games? You will have ways of dealing with it through actual gameplay. Yeah, I can't go too much in details of it. It's like you will have to behave in this world, and you know, you're not going to get far, you know, to talk about it. But of course, we also need, you know, enemies. You know, we need assholes. We need someone to hate. But you know, there's a magic, you know, ratio there.
I guess all I'm looking for is like a filtered instance chat room. So if you want to break off and just be out of that general meeting area,
like havens.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Just go back to your place.
Okay.
I'm really excited by what I'm hearing, because maybe this sounds really obvious, but I feel like a lot of people are interested in the RPG part of the MMO. And with a lot of the games that are out there right now, there's a lot more focus on the combat and the questing, and you can role play, but mostly that's sitting around emoting at each other. And please go ahead.
Oh, this is a great question and something we thought about a lot, because we call it, you know, gameplay funneling. Most MMOs tend to penalize you for, you know, roleplay, right? Because when you're roleplaying, you're not, you know, doing what you should be doing, is killing monsters. And so there's an inherent, you know, problem with the min-maxing game where the objective is to, you know, to grind. So there's been a lot of thought, there's a lot of game design around this, and one of the ways of designing our political system and our social systems is exactly for this. The idea, if I go back to Eve, we talked about this also when we were doing Eve, and because we weren't really great fans of, like, you know, pretentious role-playing. We wanted the game to, the role-playing to emerge naturally from it, you see what I'm saying? So, because we've seen this in other games, people really want to, you know, role-play the dwarf in World of Darkness, but, you know, there's not point to it really, because, you know, but in Eve this will emerge. If you're a CEO of a corporation, you're flying in your spaceship, you're talking about stuff, yes, you're not only role-playing, you're playing, you know, you're talking about the game. And that is how I want to see this, you know. It's like, yes, you're role-playing, but sometimes you don't even notice it, you know, it's so real. Do you see what I'm saying?
Fundamentally, when your character's goals align with your goals, then role-playing is natural.
And the key is this, it's, like Chris mentioned earlier, you know, yes, if you want to fight stuff, yes, you can do that, great. But it's not the only way, you know, to conquer the world. You can be the prince of, you know, New York without ever killing a single person. So, yes, politics, role-playing is, you know, it's super powerful.
Thank you. That sounds great.
Hi, Chris. Peter from World of Darkness News.
How
are you?
Yeah.
I made it. Yay. Yeah. Just a few things. I know.
I'm going to start my timer.
Yeah. No, just a few quick things. If you want to speak, fine. But these are certain concerns my community wanted me just to bring your attention that are very important to them. First one is, of course, you hit on this a little bit, PvP. Some people want to just go in role-playing. They want an easy way to avoid that big brouhaha. and Elysium, of course, which is, you know, sort of. And then Masquerade Enforcement, they're very concerned about mechanics. Obviously, guy jumping around in a thong, you know, look at me, you know.
Scrum Master.
Yeah, Scrum. Look at me, you know, with my blood magic, Scrum Master in a thong, obviously an issue. And so that's, you know, Masquerade Enforcement, very kind of a concern. And I don't know why, and maybe they're here, but there's a ton of people who are into monks. And
Into what?
Malkavians.
Yeah.
And they really feel, I don't know, my site is a magnet for them for some reason. I don't know, every other clan is just like, hi, there's us, and we're monks. But they really feel that because of who they are as a clan, and their personality and everything, they'd like, if possible, some sort of tools or ability to help them come, whether that's, like, for example, the Vampire Bloodlines game. You know, Malks had a whole different, when they talked, it was all, you know, insightful but crazy talk. And, you know, just something along those lines. And they just really felt that Malkavians deserved a little extra TLC because of their uniqueness.
Whatever they type, we take their words and rearrange them in a random order.
Let me write that down. I'm sure they'll love that. Finally, one other quick thing. The community's very concerned. They've seen things like Age of Conan, which is supposed to be all, you know, blood and gore and adult content and nudity and all this stuff, and what they got was something much more toned down because at the last minute, you know, they lost their pair, basically, developers. You know, they really scaled back. And they're kind of afraid that one of the biggest concerns is World of Darkness. You know, it's adult. There's nudity and blood and gore and violence, and it's not necessarily a nice place. And the biggest concern is, you know, obviously as a producer, you got to worry about ratings and getting accepted and being able to go into places like Australia and such without them bashing you over the head. But on the flip side,
It'd be ironic.
Yeah.
Your game's too violent.
Yeah. But on the flip side, you know, there certainly is a level of expectation of adult content, essentially. And so they're wondering how you're going to balance those two.
It's tough. So we have a staff lawyer, and our staff lawyer is looking into he's actually compiling for me right now a list of all the legal implications in all the countries for some of the things that we're trying to do. I mean, the fact is, we want to make an adult game, and we have every intention to make an adult game, but there are laws in some countries that simply will have them shut their game off if the content is not what they approve of. So it's a balance.
Yeah, that's one point of it. It's also very interesting tasteful, you know, it's not like gratuitous. I don't fully understand your language.
Gratuitous.
Gratuitous violence is different. I mean, you know, it's part of it. It's yes, it's very dark, but it's not like, you know.
Yeah, well, it's just about doing it tastefully and doing it right.
Yeah,
it's not about just including.
Let's say meaningful
for its
violence,
message.
you know.
Absolutely.
And meaningful, you know. Yeah, well, it's
Nudity, lift off nudity.
Yeah. Right.
Well, I figure if Grand Theft Auto can get away with it, you know, full frontal male nudity, I don't see why anyone else can.
All nudes all the time.
No, I mean, that's not really a problem for us. You know, we're still, you know, debating about.
I can see it on my site now. There's going to be a Scrum Master when I get home. New registered user.
We have our character models currently are built nude, but I can pretty much tell you there won't be any full frontal nudity of men in the game because, you know, seriously, that would make me uncomfortable. No, I'm just kidding. I've seen lots of penises. Yeah, I've even had a few of them touch me and it was awkward. Setting that aside, no, really, those are very hard things. The minute that you give that ability to the players, there is a group of players who use it in a childish way that ultimately means the quality and maturity of your game. And so if not having it at all means that your game can actually be more mature, then that's a tough place. You have to find your footing and find your. So for example, characters nude and in their underwear, it's not allowed in public places, but you can go to your haven and do that.
Yeah,
that's what I was saying.
Oh, that's correct.
But you remember your points. Have you done with the points?
Just one other quick thing. The impression the community's gotten is it is definitely, you guys have used terms like sandbox, carnival, and such to imply it's going to, in that context, it's going to be very similar to E, where it's very player-run dynamic.
I would say it's more similar to live action role-playing.
Oh,
that is really our inspiration for.
Oh, that's
of course, learning less from me, but live action is.
Well, the reason I was going there is seeing, again, maybe I'm totally wrong, and that's the impression myself and other people got. And it's going to be very, when it comes to the PvP, those who want to get involved in the PvP, it's going to be very much like even that context. It's very player-driven, player-run. It's going to be this sect against that sect, and the community is wondering. Is it being more set up like a Sabat versus Cam, or is it going to be that kind of faction where maybe there's an Anarchs, is it going to be that kind of dynamic, or is it just going to be basically, you jump on board with kind of like E, where it's a bunch of people and some people have to form their own clique and against other cliques and so on and so forth. Is it going to be more structured or more freeform?
It's a hybrid. It's more structured than Eve, but it's also not as structured as the Masquerade, where it's like really two factions, three factions. Yes, can't really talk about exactly that.
I mean, but in a sandbox game, it's impossible to prevent players from organizing themselves. If there's any advantage to having a number of players, then they're going to do it whether you make a system for it in your game or not.
Yeah, but the thing is that the power structures are player-run, and the structured organizations like the princes and positions, but they're all manned by players because we find it's a way more interesting thing. There's another way to do it, which the princes and primogen and all NPCs don't find it interesting. No. That's not the way it goes in the live action role playing. That's not the way it should go in the game.
Thank you so much.
I'll just run through things you mentioned. PvP. PvP is a very touchy subject. Some people really like it, some people don't like it at all. The PvP in this game is very different from what you've seen in other games. It's both more free and more restrictive.
It's like people who like unicorns and people who don't like unicorns are both gonna love this.
Kind of the key to it is that we want the world to feel real, and it's a dangerous place. And you have to make friends and enemies, and others. No, don't make enemies. But you have to make friends. If you go totally offline, we want the community to be able to punish you. So, and you should never be totally safe. Like if the guy in the thong is harassing you, there are ways to deal with that. And but you would not use these powers to unnecessarily force violence upon because it's at a cost to yourself. That kind of things. So yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, I was wondering, as one of my favorite aspects of the live action role-playing portion is your character's descent into dealing with his beast and dealing with humanity. Are there going to be alternative paths besides just like humanity? Like in Sabat genre, there are paths of enlightenment.
Yeah, paths of blood. Right now, there's not, but we have every intent of releasing expansions, and that may be another alternative for us.
When humanity is a very important subject for us, and it's much harder to solve in an MMO environment than this.
Yeah, I understand.
But it's crucial to the genre. It's crucial.
Yeah.
I think we're doing better.
is one of the greatest aspects is dealing with
Because
humanity.
it's about the loss
beings.
of humanity, that's going to be the story, the sad story you're descending into darkness.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks. What do you think it's like?
Sorry.
You said, never mind, I was going to make a joke. But go ahead.
Hi, I'm
She's
representing. Yeah.
So she's been to the office under an NDA. Played the game. So you guys can harass her out in the hallway and try to break her.
First they shut up. I'm representing the B20 Europe community. They have written almost 100 of emails to us. And to sum up all those emails, what the European community seem to want is a game which is an adult game, which has a story, because that is the most important thing in Vampire the Masquerade, story, where you can have a unique character that is not a clone of the rest of the characters. You see it and you know, that's my character, that's me, and you can tell the difference from other characters. But that at the same time, you don't need a machine from the future to run the game. Because there are some games that when they're released, you need to buy a new computer just to play the game. And then it might be even a buggy game and you have just upgraded your computer for that. And if you manage to comply with these 4 points, even people that have never played MMOs have told us that they will give this a try because they just love Vampire the Masquerade and they would feel that, yeah, that this would be their first MMO. And I have a question for you, and it's of course about Europe. Are you planning on promoting this game in Europe at some point? For instance, next year at Gamescom?
That was a subtle. What?
So it's one of November.
In November? No, not that I'm aware of.
No.
This November?
Yes.
I think I'm having a party at my house. I mean, yeah, the company is based in Iceland. I'm pretty sure Europe is going to be on our agenda. So, and as far as the machine specs go, the game is actually done. We're just waiting for machines to get fast enough.
No, yes, adult, absolutely, story, yes, but it's not maybe. So the thing, what I think interesting is about Vampire the Masquerade in general is that the story is tangential to the game itself. There's the setting and stories and what's happened, but the game happens within that thing, and that's really what we're doing. But it's not going to be a story that drives the game. Unique characters, yes, that's a major feature for us. That's why we're investing incredible time and effort into creating the craziest customization of the system ever created. Does not run on an iPad yet. And but we're also very mindful about it because there's a lot of players that want to play on a laptop, with a current laptop, and so there will be different visuals. It's also so you can play the low setting, play the high setting. We do not know how low it can go because it's also both having Unicard is very taxing on the system, and secondly the game has to look beautifully because key thing about Vampire is about that it's about looking good, it's about the environments looking good, and frankly I don't think this game could have been done earlier from a technological reason. So I mean yes, I mean Wildlands were made and we mentioned that, but
very limited environment.
Well, in general, European community, what they would prefer more story, and when I say story, I mean
meaningful background where you can play in. And then, well, the graphics, they're nice. They've seen the videos on YouTube, but it's not as important to them because, I mean, they're role players, so they have lots of imagination.
It's going to run on a laptop.
Oh, I'm going to write that down. Hold on a second. Going to run on a laptop. Super laptop. Anyway, one thing I did want to mention is we have about 15 minutes left, and there's a bunch of people left in line. So if we could do 2 things, one is that guy at the end will probably be our last. Oh, if you were getting in line, you can get in. Oh, okay. So this at the end, it'll be our last person, and then we'll maybe try to hurry him up because that's like about 1.5 minutes per person or something. So.
Thank you very much for your
thanks.
I'd like to revisit a question about consequences that I asked you last year when we were both trashed. And back then I asked if there was such a thing as a true death for characters, and you had said that was probably not in the works, but I was very happy to hear that you changed your position on that.
No, I think I was probably trying to avoid the question and say, well, I can't tell you. No, but, yeah, no, it's definitely something we feel strongly about.
There is absolutely true that there's permanent death. We have designed for it now, and it's very cool. We can do it. There will be blood hunts in this game. It's going to be permanent death.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that because consequences are crucial to avoiding a lot of.
I'm curious. Do you think players should be able to duel each other to the death if they agree? Permanent death?
From planetvampire.com. We have several representatives here.
Thanks for supporting us.
We've been looking forward to the game for years now. One of the questions that we've been talking a lot about vampires, but there's more to the World of Darkness, obviously, than just vampires and humans. And we're wondering how you were planning on incorporating some of the other genres without overloading the system with, for instance, demons running around before they really need to be.
We're going to stick to vampires initially. I mean, we feel like the scope of vampires, to do it right, really requires its own dedicated focus. And then we'll work on trying to make a dedicated focus game. We felt like if we did everything, we would have to go so shallow that it just really wouldn't be the in-depth experience that we really want of just backstabbing and politics.
I have something of a suggestion. There's another MMO out there. Probably heard about it. It's been out for a while. City of Heroes has something where one of the ways they reward players who have been around for a while is to give them access to different character builds. And if that was something going forward, you could look into integrating slowly, so-and-so has been around for X number of months and we're releasing werewolves, well, they'll be the first people to have access to those player builds.
I mean, that's really like Chris says, we're focusing on vampire now. There will be elements of the other lores in the world, but that's more time. Yeah, but yes.
Yeah, those are options we've talked about, but when it comes to forward-looking, we have a lot on our plate right now, so we're focusing on that and trying to stay focused on that.
Thanks.
What? All right.
Hi, I'm also from the...
Thanks again for the Planet Vampire support. You guys should go there and check it out. As well as wadonline.news.com.net. I knew it was .net, I was just messing around.
Hi, I'm also from the Planet Vampire forums.
Right.
A big part of the true pen and paper and LARP experience is attempting to learn the identities of individuals, like who is that guy. Especially if players are just walking around, you're not gonna immediately know who they are. Will the UI use overhead names, or will Scrope Master, as from earlier, be just an anonymous nobody that we don't understand? And is there some kind of maybe system to like keep notes, keep track of people that you've met? So like, let's say you meet Scroatmaster, he's like, I'm Scroatmaster, unbelievable. And will you, next time you see him, know him as Scroatmaster or whatever pseudonym.
Upgrade.
As well as, are we gonna have a kind of standard character sheet?
Yes, there'll be a standard character sheet. We have one in game currently. It looks very similar to the one that's in the RPG. So we're trying to keep, stick with that feel.
Okay.
The other question about Scroatmaster, I got confused after you said Scroatmaster so many times.
Basically, are we gonna have names over the head when they run around? And if not, will we have like a way to keep notes in the UI about it?
All right. So the names over the heads, you will have the option if you want it. That's not going to be the default, whatsoever. Because the need for it is frankly less in our game because people look very differently. It's very important, like in EverQuest 1, where everyone looks exactly the same to have names, which is a bit confused. So if you want it, you can have it, but that's not the default mode.
All right.
There's a shortcut to show all the names. If you look at someone, you see his name. But yeah, because we generally don't like, we want the game to be very pretty. It's like name
less clutter.
One of the things that we've also discussed, frankly, with things like I know. It's
now you have to put a character in the game, like an NPC named Scroatmaster.
No, they don't.
Horrible Nosferatu, yeah, exactly. But honestly, I take the position, it's yet to be seen how it will play out, but I don't want to tolerate that stuff. Like, if we get a petition for it, just tell the person they have 2 days to change their character name or they're going to get banned.
Cool. Thank you.
Well, we want to keep their money. We change their name for them.
Yeah, the note-keeping part is not planned currently. There's something debating about it's not in. I don't think it's going to make it for much.
Oh yeah, no. That's what pen and paper's for.
Yeah.
Sorry. You guys don't know what pen and paper is.
But
way it's a vampire RPG convention. Alright, enough jokes. He's waiting, he's rolling his eyes at me. Jesus, will you shut up? Go ahead.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Okay, a little about story in the game. White Wolf actually, at one point at least, was known for having a fairly strong meta plot and a fairly strong overarching story. Now, obviously, this is a matter of taste, and there's going to be a lot of disagreement about it. I personally feel like that's an attractive part of the experience for me, and I would be somewhat disappointed if there wasn't an ongoing storyline that wasn't solely driven by player guilds. You understand?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a meta plot. But it unfolds a little bit differently than it does in well, actually quite similar to the role-playing books. It's something plays out.
It's very hard to have meta plot in place that doesn't disempower players.
Yes, but the thing is, it's a different storytelling mechanism. It's an indirect story. Kind of like the meta plot in the role-playing books. Is that it's an unfolding story that players participate in. But you have to understand, it's a very different thing. The tabletop and the live action is a very different thing, and the MMO is more similar to the live action. In a tabletop environment, I would say the meta plot is more important than live action because because of the positive power are in the hands of players. It's a different storytelling.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, at White Wolf we debated about meta plot. That's why initially in Masquerade we had a lot of meta plot, and then we took a lot of it out in Requiem because people had a hard time following it. Sometimes they got behind, and then they felt like, I'm never going to catch up, and then would just drop out, or they buy a new book and they didn't quite know where it fit into the sequence of events, that sort of thing.
it just feels to me like in some ways Metaplot would actually be more suited for an online environment because you have this shared world. You don't have to worry about everybody taking their game in a different direction.
No, absolutely. I mean, and arguably, most MMOs do have metaplots, through the fact that they make expansions, and that's kind of, I mean, EVES has, pseudo metaplot for years, but it's always, it's tangential to the big things. It's a hard thing. We're planning to do different.
We would prefer that the metaplot be about an epic character takeover and murder of the prince that's run by players.
See, that's exactly what I don't like. It's the reason why I don't play EVE, because I don't care about these player guilds. I don't like... I don't know. It just seems like it gets into this whole kind of drama queen thing where the in-guild politics are the only thing that actually matters. And I think a lot of other players find that really frustrating.
It can be. It certainly can be.
But, so...
Well,
and we actually recognize that. You don't have to participate that day. It's not interesting. But we have this theory that even if you don't participate in it, it's still interesting to you.
One of the other things that's very difficult about Metaplot when you're making an MMO is that then you start to functionally make content for players. And the more content you have to make and keep churning out, the more difficult it is to maintain it. Players consume that content at different levels. And so some guys think that they've got 4 months, if you think you're giving them 4 months or 6 months of gameplay, and they consume it in 3 weeks, and they say, oh, I can't believe that's over. That was really quick. And that happens a lot in MMOs. If you look at whenever a new World of Warcraft expansion comes out, most people have consumed everything in it in a week. At least a number of players have. It's very difficult to keep up with that pace. Whereas, so I understand your concerns, but fundamentally, when you look at social interaction, I mean, this is all driven by Metaplot. By player-driven Metaplot. It's definitely what politics is about for players. Politics with NPCs is not really politics at all.
No, I think you're touching on a fundamental philosophy, that we're talking about, because, it's ultimately about creating, a world that, that revolves around itself. You can't solve this problem with content. And Metaplot, yes, it's interesting in a way. And I think the Masquerade Metaplot is very interesting. We'll have that kind of Metaplot. It's not going to be about Princess or, Primogen or just because those will be players. So it's a different kind of Metaplot.
Right.
I'm going to try to be quick. This is kind of touching on the same point. I'm going to preface this by saying that I haven't played EVE, so I don't know how you guys are doing this already. A common problem I find in MMOs is that you